NVPlay helped me make this content. For detailed performance breakdowns of your game using technology and data, contact them today. Hit Wicket is the cricket game backed by Harsha Bogle and me, so you know it's full of nerd energy. This strategic cricket game isn't just about frantic tapping. You make decisions based on how cricket actually works. You've got to set a batter up, right? And you can't hit a six from the first ball. Hit Wicket knows all that, and they made a game that makes it work with a few gaming twists in there as well. So play, build, and manage your team, because you are the batter, the bowler, the coach, the selector. I mean, you're basically everything in this game, right? And there's no ads on Hit Wicket. So download it for free for mobile and unleash your inner cricket legend.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Overthrows podcast. I'm Behram who you can find at DefMango on Twitter. And with me, as always, is Jarrod Kimber, who you can find literally everywhere. We've got a fair few people in the comments. Surosh Alam, Box, Vignesh Ram, Hari Krishnan, and then, of course, Varun's there. Samba Breeza, Arnav Jindal, Varun Akavur. Is that Varun's alt account? What the hell's going on here? Is that his fake cricketer name?
I was going to say, I was thinking it was for his fake cricketer name that his alt account.
Yeah. Also, Krunk and Vignesh Ram. Yeah, I've taken all of your names. I'm sorry if I missed anyone. But, well, the premise of today's Overthrows podcast is India's thumping win versus Australia. They literally walloped the Aussies by 295 runs in Perth to go 1-0 up in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. Jarrod, India's biggest ever win in Australia in Test cricket. Their third biggest ever win in Test cricket, like ever, right? And Australia were unbeaten at the Optus Stadium in Perth in 5 games. Now, India were bowled out for 150 in the first innings, and that was the only period in the test match where Australia were ahead. This is a statement of a win from Jaiswal, Bumrah and co.
It's huge. I mean, beating any team at home by 295 runs, especially if they're a decent side. I know Australia have some issues, and we talked about that coming in. But beating a team at home by that many runs is huge. But beating them without needing to pick Ashwin or Jadeja, without Rohit, without Shubman Gill, without Hardik Pandya, without Mohammad Shami, and then still picking them up and throwing them around. I just think it's a massive, massive victory. I think they came into the test match at about, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 to 1 now, but I remember looking at them early on and being like, oh, I thought they'd be shorter than that. But the markets didn't think so, and the bookies certainly didn't think so. And then I went to have a look at them after the first innings, and they were 11 to 1, right?
Yeah.
So, after one quarter of this game, essentially, it wasn't 1 quarter, it was about 8 minutes of this game, but after 1 quarter of this game, they were already out of it. And to storm back from there to win by 295 runs is magnificent. And I think it's fair to say that they got the best of the conditions.
Yes.
But when the conditions were similar, they still smashed Australia in the face, right?
True.
Yeah. And I would, based on the numbers that we looked at, it felt like the wicket was slightly better when Australia were, it felt like the wicket was slightly better when Australia was bowling, and yet India did better when they bowled. So it's hard to take too much away from that in that situation, and still to not lose. It's all well and good to say, oh, the pitch is flat, right? And India made some runs. There's a difference between the pitch is flat and not losing a wicket for 2 sessions, right? Any way that you go, oh, some things went in India's favor, and they did. It's like, but when you actually start to break them down, you're like, no, there's a lot here that should work for the rest of the series. Doesn't mean they win another test match or anything. They could still lose all the other test matches, but it doesn't feel that way at the moment. Partly because of the size of the win and the size of the swing within the win. Partly because they have a bunch of players that can come back that can make them even stronger. And then on top of that, we had talked about Australia having a problem with their top 4. There's a difference between having a problem with your top 4 and forfeiting your top 4. And they forfeited their top 4.
Absolutely. I feel like one of the biggest factors or remarkable things about India's victory is that they were so understrength. They didn't have their captain and opener in Rohit Sharma. Of course, Shubman Gill fractured his left thumb. Mohammad Shami is still not, fully fit enough to play test cricket, and he probably will be soon. And then they intentionally chose not to play either of Ashwin or Jadeja, right? They came out as victors in thumping fashion. And I feel like this is going to go down as one of India's greatest ever away victories in test cricket. And let's just talk about the evolution of the surface a bit, right? The conditions and everything. It was so drastic that on day 1, 17 wickets fell, and day 2, there were just 3 wickets. And India didn't even lose a wicket on day 2, right? Now, come day 3, a bit of variable bounce started to creep in. They had images of day 1 and day 2 side by side, and they looked like 2 completely different tracks. And I suppose that is the beauty of Test cricket, right? That is why it is such a, untamable beast or monster. And we absolutely love the sport because it's the way it is. And like you said, you can say that India won because of the conditions, because they were just better than Australia in all sorts of conditions.
So one thing I would say about the, you can't just say they won because of the conditions, because they won by 295 runs as well. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's fair to say, I think I picked 4-1. So I originally picked 3-2. For about a year, I was like, there's not a lot to split these teams. I'll go with the home team winning the series. When Shami wasn't available, I was like, that's a big loss. I don't trust Siraj at the moment. I'm going to swing back towards 4-1. But even if you thought to yourself, do you know what? I think India can win the series 3-2, or, they can win 2 test matches on this series. There's no, and the richest person on earth is the person at the moment who thought they were going to win by this much.
Yeah.
Right? Because that is absolutely massive. And I backed India twice in this test match, right? So I backed them, I think, when Bumrah got his first or second wicket in the first innings, and I backed them again when Josh Hazlewood came off in the third innings. Yeah. Right. So I was pretty confident, and these weren't small bets, right? I was pretty confident that this was going to swing back. Stay in India's favor. But even I didn't stay around that long, right? Because, I was like, oh, but this can happen and this can happen. The way that they played Australia so breathlessly out of the game is the upset here more than the victory itself. Like, this is not, it's just such a colossal win. And I don't think you can downplay that. Now, if you want a recent history lesson, Pakistan did very well in the first innings against England. England made 800 and completely stuffed them, and we're all like, Pakistan may never win a test match again. Pakistan win that series 2-1. Yeah. Right? Australia's 2 tests in the same venue is the day-night test in Adelaide, right? That's their version of that. They've still never been beaten in a day-night test at Adelaide. They have at the Gabba, but that's a completely different... and they've had a couple of bad ones at the Gabba, actually. That one against Pakistan as well. So, you look at it from that perspective, and you're just like, it's so hard to see how that's going to swing back. But there are signs about why it could go the other way in the future. So there is an element of that there. But it's such a dissection of them. And so many of the things that we thought might go wrong with Australia really went wrong.
Yeah, no, pretty much everything that could go wrong did go wrong for Australia, barring the first innings. And this was Perth, right? I had India losing the series at 3-2. That was my prediction. And I did not give them the Perth Test because they were under strength. And we were going to, we were quite sure that there's going to be lots of pace and bounce, even if, it was tricky for the batters in the first innings for both teams. But it's just the manner in which they've won this test match that literally propels them back into contention for the World Test Championship final, right? And you've got to give credit to the man who led them from the front, right? Jasprit Bumrah's career is littered with brilliance. We have covered him umpteen times on this very channel. And he, of course, bagged the Player of the Match award. And this spell, or this entire effort, he took 8 wickets. It has to be right up there with the very best of Bumrah that we've seen in international cricket. Like 5 for 30 in his first dig, and then 3 for 42 in the second. He's averaging 20.06 now in Test cricket. And
it went above 20 again.
Yeah, Shayan's.
I thought it was under 20, wasn't it, at one stage?
But Shayan's dream of Bumrah averaging less than 20 apiece in Test cricket is becoming more real by the minute. And conditions don't matter, opposition doesn't matter, format doesn't matter. Jasprit Bumrah is the undisputed king of all format cricket as we stand. And the fact that he was captaining an under-strength Indian team, which has just gotten swept at home by New Zealand 3-0, right? Look at the context. And then he comes and he's absolutely relentless with his captaincy, right? They never take their foot off the gas. There's just so much to like about him, but I feel like this was his perfect test.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I really liked is I felt like he bowled better with the new ball than I've seen him bowl consistently with the new ball. Like, as in, it felt like he reached another level within this situation. So I definitely think there was a huge, that's just, miraculous.
First spell, the first new ball spell was so... exhilarating that you could not take your eyes off the screen. It was theater, absolute blockbuster of a
But so was the second one.
Yeah. 12 for 3, late in day 3.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it felt like if that innings had gone on for 15 more minutes, Australia would have been like 8 out. Like, it was... So it was... his mastery of each facet of the game seems to be growing. But the thing for me, and this is the one, so the new ball bowling is fine, and we've seen that occasionally and everything else. The thing that I thought was really, really cool was that Australia actually bowled really well in that first innings. I don't think any of us walked away going they didn't bowl well. They put themselves in a good position. They kept the pressure on India and everything else.
And the commentators, Jarrod, sorry, but the commentators at that point after the first innings were saying that the pitch doesn't seem to have much demons. Australia bowled really well, whereas, the pitch was tricky to bat on.
That was nonsense, but I don't. That's why I put my bet on India, and that's why I made so much money. But the point being is that he looked at what Australia did and went, they were wrong. And that's hard to do when the opposition bowlers have bowled you out for 150. It is hard to sit there and and it's probably slightly easier for him because he's the captain and because he's a star, right? But it's probably slightly easier for him in that situation to do this. But even so, it's not an easy thing to go to everyone. Do you know what? I think they bowled the wrong length. I'm going to just bowl this other length and see how it goes. And he did. And it's such a incredible a moment where he's just read that wicket so brilliantly. And because he tried this other length, he did the one thing the Australians didn't manage to do, which he kept the stumps in play. So he got the seam movement and he kept the stumps in play. And that just made him absolutely unplayable. So again, it's like getting the new ball, using the new ball right. Okay, fine. That's a little tick. And then it's like, but also picking a better length on a wicket, before you've bowled a ball, right? He's just like, no. And it would have been, he's a very good bowler when he bowls back of the length. He could have bowled the same length that Australia had bowled, and he would have been very good. But he picked a far more dangerous length, and I just thought that was absolutely brilliant.
I mean, he's such an intelligent cricketer to go on top of everything else that he does have, or, in his skill set. And there's this thing that they always do whenever, Bumrah plays Test cricket abroad. I've noticed this, that they will focus in or zoom in on his action. They'll show the hyper extension, and then they'll show the late release points. Sure, I agree, Bumrah is a freak of nature, but there's so much more to him, right? Look at his pace variations. Look at all the vast arsenal of deliveries that he has at his disposal. And also, he's perfected the length for every single one of those deliveries. And as you said, he read the conditions perfectly. Now, subcontinent bowlers struggle sometimes when they first play a test match in Australia because they can't get the length right. But not just Bumrah, Siraj and Harshit also had the length nailed down. And I'm sure he also rubbed off on his peers.
So I want to get back to that other point because I saw someone else, my friend Vishal Misra, saying a similar thing of like, people always focus on the release point. It's like, we spent like 80 years in cricket not actually talking about why bowlers are good. And like, now we have photographic proof of why this guy is a freak and we're showing it. And we just spent 15 years watching Lasif Malinga and seeing release points of Lasif Malinga. And it's like, we're now complaining that people are explaining one of the things that he's great at. It's much harder to explain the more Vernon Philander types things, or the Wasim Akram type things of his bowling, right? It's much harder to explain that. Whereas it's very easy to go, everyone else is releasing from here and he releases from there. So I think that is fair.
There is merit in that conversation. No one's saying that's not true. I just feel like there's just so much more to him that this always becomes the highlighted point, and no one ever talks about all the stuff that we talk about on Footmarks.
Yeah. I mean, if you go through all the things that we talk about compared to all the things that everyone else talks about, I think you'll find, mainstream media, I mean, they're playing to a different audience, right? We are playing to fundamentally hardcore cricket fans. There aren't any casual fans on here. We occasionally get them to come through, right? But it's very rare that we get hardcore cricket fans coming through here. That we don't get hardcore cricket fans coming through here, or at least coming back twice, right? But they're playing for the 75-year-old woman who, has always liked cricket on in the background and is watching it because she's semi-retired and it's November and, she likes Pat Cummins. It's important that these people understand what is happening. And if you have a listen, this is why I disagree with your general point. They also kept going on about Pat Cummins' shorter finger. We don't even know if Pat Cummins' shorter finger actually helps with his release. At least we know with Bumrah, this is a huge advantage. At least we know with Malinga, this is a huge advantage. And the way I look at it is that when we get to Kyle Jamieson, we're not, every time he bowls, someone's going to mention his height. I'm okay with that because you have to educate the general fans a little bit. And, Foxtel, that is what they are trying to do, right? I'm not going to defend all of their broadcasts. A lot of their broadcast is really odd. But that side of it, I kind of get. But a lot of the stuff with Bumrah, it is just harder to go into all those individual things. And Australian cricket broadcasting has never really been about cricket fans. It really is. I mean, it's the only cricket broadcasting that became like a separate entity through the 12th Man tapes and everything. Do you know what I mean? It lives kind of outside of everything else because it's such a big part of Australia. But so I'm more than okay with that because he was being treated like a rock star every time he had the ball in his hand. Like Mark Howell was going to lose his voice every time Bumrah had the ball, right? Like that is the kind of stuff that I really like because I was saying this. Someone put a comment up on, I think it was Wagon Wheel the other day, saying, okay, so Australia is advertising this series and they're talking about Jaiswal and Pant and all these things. And I was like, yeah, that's how you should promote series. Too often people promote series as just, come and watch our boys against some other boys. And it's like, no, right? If LeBron comes to town, you market LeBron. If Bumrah and Jaiswal come to town, you market that. And I think that in Australia, they've always been quite bad at that. Halfway through this test, it was more about Bumrah than it was the Australian players, right? It was certainly more about Jaiswal than it was the Australian players. And I think that's a really, really positive sign. But yeah, you know, Foxtel is what it is. They're jamming 3 commentators in there on air all the time. They're jockeying for things. You know, you got Kerry O'Keefe is there for one thing. You know, trying to make, you know, light of situations. You know, it is what it is. It's a different kind of broadcast. And so I don't think, you know, there is a situation where you don't have that. So Simple Masters just said, Indian cricket is a box office, the rest are meh. I mean, that's just not true, is it? We just came out of a situation not that long ago where AB de Villiers and Dale Steyn would travel to Australia. And I would tell you that the line, when Dale Steyn traveled to Australia, Ian Healy described him as the James Pattinson of South African cricket, right? Literally, the way they should have marketed that series was, here is the best player in the world. He's the best bowler in the world. We have to try and beat him now, right? There were plenty of other good cricketers from other countries that you could do that with. Australians obsessed over Bumrah Azam for ages because of some of the innings that he's played there. You could sell Bumrah Azam. You could sell Rachin Ravindra if you want to, right? Like sometimes it's harder. Sometimes it's not. There are really obvious things. So I'm okay with all that, but the technical stuff, it really is more of the sort of thing that we do.
Yeah, I mean, as far as calling the game is concerned, I think Mark Howard was brilliant. I love myself some Skull as well, you know, for some comedy element or whatever. And I mean, who wouldn't harp on about Jasprit Bumrah? So I don't blame them. I think that was fantastic. If you just look at his first 9 balls, right? I think they were all different kinds of deliveries in the first innings. And then his wife also complimented his booty. So best all-format cricketer in the world with a fantastic booty. What's not to like?
Just one here on Cronk. They don't talk about Cummins' finger that much. That's because it's an Australian audience, and they still mention it in this test match. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're still going on about it, and we don't know that Cummins' figure is an advantage, Cronk. We have no idea if it has anything to do with him being a good bowler. We know that it is with Bumrah. We know that it is with Malinga. We know that it is with Jameson. Enjoy this. This is a bowler who is unlike anyone else. That's why I keep comparing him to Sydney Barnes. Every single difference that he has, you know, be it the run-up, be it the release, be it the hyper-extension, being the ability to get movement out of the old ball, the ability to use slower balls, all these things, we should be hyping up all of these things when he bowls, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, and these things are mentioned quite a lot, but when you are having a go at a major broadcaster who are literally talking to 75-year-old people who like cricket in the background and have no idea, right? That is not the audience who gives a shit about the individual stuff on his wrist position and everything else. That's what Sky Cricket do, because Sky Cricket is not going to a general audience. They are going specifically to a cricket audience, right? And a lot of other broadcasters around the world do the same thing. That is not how cricket is broadcast in Australia. So if you want to whinge about that, I've got no issues doing it. But in this test, they hyped the hell out of Jasprit Bumrah. Who cares if they just said he was great and showed that his action was a little bit different? Let's take the wins where we get them, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, all right. Enough time spent on broadcasters. And I mean, Bumrah is box office. He's an alien. We all know that. And we've done several foot marks on him. So go check those ones out. Now, the other two Indian seamers also did really, really well. Let's talk about debutant Harshit Rana, right? 4 wickets in the test match, including 3 for 48 in his debut bowling innings. He's not express pace. And we knew he had a good slower one from the IPL. He did well at the death. But I thought his lengths were on point, especially for someone who was making his international debut. His wrist snap was good as well. He was bowling bowling those nagging lengths, and he made Travis Head look like an absolute amateur in the first innings.
Yeah, I mean, it's really.
We didn't have him, by the way, in our playing 11, Jarrod, when we previewed the series.
I don't think many people did. I don't remember him being that high up. I mean, I think because it was Perth and Prashi Krishna was there, we were all just leaning towards who is the tallest, who's the one most likely to get the bounce and everything else. Well, they went for a more traditional hit the wicket bowler. To be fair, the more I watched the Perth wicket, the more I thought to myself, it's not a bad idea actually. The interesting thing with Harshit Rana is that he went about double the amount of runs that everyone else did in his various spells. But when I went back and had a look at the control percentage, I think Varun found this for us. When you looked at the actual control percentage, he was creating a lot of chances in that first innings, right?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go for more runs and you're creating a lot of chances, those two things even out. In the second innings, I don't think it was quite at that level, and I think he was struggling at times. I don't mean struggling as in he was going to lose in the game or anything, but I think at times he was struggling to just work out what he's going to do. I just think he probably needs a great stock ball, right? And he because of his size and his physicality, he should have a fairly good stock ball. It should be a very different length to Siraj, Shami, and Bumrah.
Akashdeep, Bumrah.
Yeah, and Akashdeep. Yeah, all of those guys, right? If you can match that and you can just work out how to occasionally bowl dry and then bowl his everything. He just needs that combination. I know there's already lots of talk about his speed and everything. I don't think he's that much slower than Will O'Rourke though. And I see him as more of that kind of bowler where he has the ability to kind of get something out of the wicket because of how hard he is hitting the surface, that's different than just being fast, right? So you can be fast and bowl dead straight, right? So you look at like Mark Wood. Mark Wood's 20 kilometers quicker than him, right? Consistently. But Mark Wood doesn't really nip the ball around that much unless there's heaps of grass on the wicket. Whereas I think Harshit Rana is the sort of guy that will get stuff out of the wicket because he has that sort of stronger way about him, and he's going to hit the surface a lot more. So I think he's a really interesting bowler. If Shami comes back, obviously he's the first one to go. But if India came into this series not knowing exactly who their third bowler should be, one test in, they've got a really good performance out of a guy that very few people had in their starting lineup.
Absolutely. And of course, it is unfortunate that whenever Shami comes back, because I'm quite sure he will, Harshit will have to sit out. But, big, strong lad making his debut for India, hits the deck hard and got a lot of purchase out of that surface. A memorable debut for him. And I mean, he's operating with Siraj and Bumrah, so that would have helped as well. And of course, Siraj, someone who was suffering from a lean run of form for quite a while now. He took 2 for 20 and 351 in this game. So 5 wickets, including some vital top order wickets as well, second time around. And his overseas record, I reckon, if I can remember correctly, in Test cricket holds up. More importantly, though, he looked in rhythm and he was also finding that correct length. And I feel like that's a major plus for India because this is also a bowler who, many people, were considering dropping from the starting 11.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of Indian fans who wouldn't have picked Siraj. I mean, he's not on KL Rahul's level, is he? But he certainly gets a lot of flack every time he doesn't do well in a match. And look, part of the issue is he doesn't quite know what he's doing, so he can't always replicate it. And we've talked about this before. People like him and Stuart Broad, it's just that all they know is some days they run in and magic happens, and some days they run in and crap happens, right? Like, I mean, they would love to be able to work this out a lot better. What I thought was quite interesting with Siraj is that you're right, his overseas record's fine. In fact, it's actually hard to poke a hole in his career. The biggest issue is it's just, can he find rhythm for more than 1 or 2 games in a row? And that's the thing that is the most tricky. I wonder where this test match goes, though, if Siraj wasn't bowling as good as he was.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, do you think that the performances by Harshit and Siraj were also impacted by Bumrah in a way? Because he was leading the team and he would have all the plans. And we've seen other bowlers, I think Siraj included, go on record and say that Bumrah is educating them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps, yeah. I mean, he probably would have done that if he was out in the field anyway, right? Like, I mean, that is part of his job, I suppose, although maybe he's at fine leg a little bit more. So I can imagine that's a big part of it. But I think the other thing is that if you've got someone just taking the top off the opposition, right, you are in a situation where you're already bowling under less pressure, right? Like, you're not... you're not bowling to an opening partnership that's done for 40, and you start to strain yourself and try and come up with weird ways of getting people out, right? You're just like, well, we've already got them under pressure, so we're just going to continue to bowl the way that we are. So I think that massively helps them as well. What else would I say of Siraj? Yeah, so, and I think the other thing I would say is Bumrah's man of the match, and obviously brilliant cricket, and exciting every time he had the ball in his hand. He only took 8 wickets in what was realistically, for the majority of the game, a 3-man attack, right? Washington didn't bowl all that much.
Before the series started, in the preview, I predicted that Bumrah will end up with 30 to 35 wickets in this Test series. So we're on track. He's gotten 8 already.
You are on track, but if I was you, I'd be a little bit upset with that because he bowled so brilliantly and only got 8. Whereas this is the game he should have got 10 or 12, right? Like that, then you would have been solid at that stage because you need him at 7 wickets per game, and he's only 1 up on your par at the moment. But that's a really important thing because they really did kind of bowl as a 3-person attack in this one. I know Nitish came on for some secondary spells, which is fine. That's how they're going to use him. And I thought he bowled well when the pitch was breaking up. And I know Washington bowled a little bit, but he was used definitely as a supplementary bowler rather than a frontliner. So for Bumrah to only take 8 wickets and for them to win so comfortably, I think is a really, really cool thing as well. It's just how it's just how Siraj can replicate it. But if Shami comes back and Siraj is the 3rd bowler, I've got no issues with Mohammad Siraj as India's 3rd bowler because then what you're doing is you've got one guy who's a new ball specialist, an absolute brilliant bowler who's going to be programmed away. The other person's the best all-format bowler and is toying with a bowling average of 20, right? And then you have your 3rd bowler is dynamite, right? So you can just bring him on, and if it works, it works. If it works, they win the Test easy. And if it doesn't work, you hope that the other 2 can cover him, and you've got spinners and maybe a seam bowling all-rounder to help out. So they have plenty of options from that point of view.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I just play Siraj because of his matchup versus Usman Khawaja, because he does really, really well against him. But anyway, before we go on break, let's just quickly discuss Australia's bowling because there's not much. And it's not like Australia's bowling isn't the reason why they've gotten hammered in this Test match. But barring Hazelwood's 4 for 29 in the first innings, and he was damn brilliant, right? Like he was on top of his game. They did look a little lackluster. And why I say that is because regardless of the pitch, flattening out and it getting easier for the batting, I would say that taking 6 wickets in all those overs and the runs weren't free-flowing at all either, they could have done better. Like, they failed to take 20 wickets, and this won't do, especially versus India.
No, I mean, look, I thought in the second innings, we got in a situation where the wicket was obviously flattening out, but I don't think it was deadly flat when they started their bowling. I think it was probably more flat towards the end of that day, for sure. But I thought when they started their bowling, there was something there. And Stark had bowled really well in the first innings. Cummins hadn't. Mitch Marsh had bowled really well, but you're not relying on Mitch Marsh at any stage in that, right? So I was thinking to myself, well, if Stark and Hazelwood bowl well here, and realistically, I think Hazelwood was the only one who bowled well, and what were his figures? Wasn't it something like 1 for 28 from 21 in
something like that, man?
I mean, just ridiculous. We people are going on and on about how there wasn't enough talk about Bumrah's skill. The Australian commentators basically ignored Hazelwood's bowling while everyone else is getting hammered. I was like, are you guys watching this? Like, every time I looked up, I was like, it looks like his figures are made up. It looks like he hacked into the scoreboard and changed his figures. So I think, and that gets back to what we just said with, India having 3 bowlers. Like, in that second innings, I still thought Stark had good rhythm. He just didn't look like he was put, it didn't look like it was working for him. Cummins really, really struggled. They didn't want to use Mitch Marsh too much because they didn't want to use Mitch Marsh too much. The whole Marnus thing and everything else. But it was kind of Hazelwood or bust. That you can't have these are 4 bowlers who are going to go down as Australian greats, right? Like that's the path that they're all on. Different ways. Maybe Starks is slightly more multi-format and everything else, but they're all going to go down as Australian greats in the history, and certainly one of the greatest quartets, if not the greatest quartet Australia's ever had. Yeah, they didn't bowl particularly well, and what they tried to do, I thought it was a mistake of Cummins, the captain. In fact, I thought on day 2, both captains slipped up a little bit. I thought Bumrah just bowled that opening spell for too long, where against the tail, I think you just want to switch the bowlers around a little bit more, like, and try things out. Didn't matter. They were massively ahead in the game, and Australia weren't coming back. So India played the patience game, and it worked for them, right? Then Australia came out, and you heard Travis Head at T talking about this. Oh, we're just going to stay patient and everything else. I was like, no, I think you guys have misread what is happening here. This wicket is very quickly changing, and it's not changing in the direction that you need it to be, with cracks opening up and everything. They needed to try a lot more things in that middle session, and they didn't. And by the time they got to the last session, and Marnus stuff and all that, it was already too late. I'm not saying Marnus was the right way of doing it.
I'm happy for Marnus because he loves to bowl seam up. He also clocked 135 or something. But like, if you have to bowl Marnus Labuschagne in a test match, then things are currently or clearly not going well. I felt like Australia were out of ideas at some point. And yes, Hazelwood was the pick of the bowlers and he was fantastic. But the other three really, they need to step up, especially Cummins, because
can I just pause something? Just here, Crunk has put this comment in. Crunk, we have talked about how good Bumrah is. I've made more videos on how good Bumrah is than anyone else, right? Than anyone else. Why is this the place that you feel the need to talk in Bumrah's corner, right? Find other places where they're not talking him up. Hazelwood was incredible in an innings where the Australian bowlers didn't get as much out of the surface as they could have, and everything else. People should be talking up that Hazelwood spell as well. Right?
Absolutely.
It's okay to like your best player, but it gets boring. And it's the same with everyone. Anyone who's just spamming the comments, we can read them. We see what's happening. We're trying to stay up with it, but it's the same thing over and over again. Let's move on. Hazelwood was great. Let's talk about Hazelwood here, right? Here we go.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Crunk is saying that he was not talking about you, Jarrod.
But he is talking to us, right? And I'm saying that the commentators didn't talk Hazelwood up enough, right? That's true. We're talking about Hazelwood in his career. It was really interesting. There was a very interesting chat about Hazelwood in this test match. I don't know if you picked it up, Behram. And they were talking about the fact, I think it was Kerry O'Keefe said to David Warner, why do you think Hazelwood isn't on the same level? And David Warner said, because he's not on social media, right? And there is an element of that. Mitchell Stark obviously has this really, public relationship with Alyssa Healy and loves talking, and does a lot of that sort of stuff. Pat Cummins has his own YouTube channel. And again, I wouldn't say Pat Cummins is like out there in the media, but he's involved in all these things. And as captain, Hazelwood doesn't get the respect he needs. And in this particular innings, he didn't get the respect from the other bowlers.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. His partners didn't back him up the way they should have. I mean, Stark was good with the new ball in the first innings. And after that, kind of lost his bite. Cummins generally doesn't have these sort of games. Like, he's generally very consistent. And I mean, Nathan Lyon, it just wasn't his test match either. So, I mean, Australia's bowling definitely needs to improve. It's obviously not the reason why they've lost this test match, I'd say. And also, Varun, there was another comment up that you put up earlier. We never got to read. So let's do that.
I put it up for you. It was about you.
Oh, yeah, that's why I wanted to read it.
I've now lost it. Sorry, mate. Look, you had your chance of someone being nice to you. Oh, my God. Now me and Varun have both found it.
All right, Prince Batra says, I'm here because of Behram. Damn right you are. I'm not able to do a super chat right now, but because my Google Pay isn't working. Big fan of you. Thank you, Prince. Invite me to your palace someday. And he wants to start a podcast like me on movies and sport. 100%. Go for it. I'll subscribe. All right.
Varun, if you could just kick Prince Batra out of the comments, please.
Okay, on that comical note, we shall go on a short break. You guys are watching Overthrows with Jarrod and Behram, and we will be back shortly.
Sometimes you just need to take the slips out and bowl defensively, and you need to be just as careful.
Oh,
sorry,
that's gone.
Not working.
NV Play helped me make this content. For detailed performance breakdowns of your game using technology and data, contact them today. Hit Wicket is the cricket game backed by Harsha Bogle and me, so you know it's full of nerd energy. This strategic cricket game isn't just about frantic tapping. You make decisions based on how cricket actually works. You've got to set a batter up, right? And you can't hit a six from the first ball. Hit Wicket knows all that, and they made a game that makes it work with a few gaming twists in there as well. So play, build, and manage your team, because you are the batter, the bowler, the coach, the selector. I mean, you're basically everything in this game, right? And there's no ads on Hit Wicket. So download it for free for mobile and unleash your inner cricket legend.
Welcome back to Overthrows. You guys are with Jarrod and Behram. And time to talk about the batting in this test match. And there's only really one place to start. Yashasvi Jaiswal, who had scored a duck in the first innings, by the way, he went on and slammed 161 runs in the third. And he's got this penchant for scoring daddy hundreds, doesn't he, Jarrod? Like you, I think it's your line that he went from duck to diamond. But if you look at his 4 tons in Test cricket, you've got 171 versus the West Indies in the Caribbean, which I reckon might have come on Test match debut, if I can remember correctly. And then you've got 209 and an unbeaten 214 versus England at home. And now 161 versus Australia in Perth, even if the conditions at ease, that's still massive. And when he goes big, he just goes to go on and on and on. And it's just such an enigmatic sort of situation. Plus, you add the aesthetic brilliance and that uppercut ramp shot that he scored to get to his 100. He literally, like, he's got to be the most shining star when it comes to batting talents of the next generation, easily.
He's I think the 100 thing's really interesting. So have you seen the feature we did on him? And we can do that as a footmarks going ahead. But I won't talk
We'll
about
do that
it
as a footmarks going ahead.
but
I
won't
subbed
talk
that feature for you, by the way. I subbed it,
mate,
didn't I?
Mate, I haven't slept in 4 days. Right?
Fair enough.
I haven't slept in 4 days. There's a bunch of people on Twitter having a go at me about something for Virat Kohli. And I was just like, guys, I was trying to be pro Virat Kohli in that video. And I haven't slept for 4 fucking days. Like, I think I did 6 videos yesterday. Right? Like, let's just chill our beans a little bit, everyone. So I think, the thing I talked about there is that that early in his career where he has the 2 first-class hundreds and he goes out basically on the landmark. I don't know if it was a coach talking to him or he just worked it out on his own, but the ability, most players never quite get past that landmark thing, right? Like you're statistically much more likely in cricket to go out between 100 and 104 than you are in 96 and 99, right? 95 and 99, whatever it is. And he seemed to work it out like as an infant playing first-class cricket on the back of two games in a row. And now I think his next lowest 100 is 144, right?
It's crazy.
Like, it's so weird how quickly he picks things up. And it's the same with the offside. So what I thought would happen is he went out driving on the up and his foot wasn't set. It was early on and he gets caught. And it's fine. He goes out that way a lot. It's something he obviously would already be aware of, right? And in the next innings, I was like, I think he's going to leave more. Right? Because that's kind of how a normal batting mind would work, right? So I go and look up the stats. He usually leaves 28% and he left 21%. So he actually went the other way, right? And I think it shows he's already working out methods and different ways of doing things. He's on a Bumrah-like level of being able to work things out. It's really still early in his career.
Yep.
Motivation can be an issue, injury can be an issue. Fame can be an issue. Like, I don't want us all to overhype him, right? Because I've seen what has happened to other players who've ended up like this. But it is very hard. Yeah, but it's very hard to look at what he's doing and not, even if you are just, as a cold-hearted analyst, I'm like, at the moment, it is very hard for him not to be the best batter in the world in 5 years' time. And it's also possible that he could be the best batter in the year in 2 years' time or 1 year's time, right? Like
his age of batting maturity seems to be coming at an accelerated pace.
Exactly. And he might be a different kind of person as well and everything else. And he's so great to watch. And he really could be, right? And this is where the overhype comes in. He really could be a top tier level talent, right? And by that I mean, beyond some. I don't want to name any names of current players who are playing, but he is on that kind of level where he could go beyond some of the other greats that are playing, right? Like he really is a top tier, potential player. Lot that can happen between now and the end of his career to change that and everything else. But
but he's on that trajectory though, right? That we are certain 100%. Of. Like if he's averaging 58 or something after 15 test matches, which is not a small sample size. 15 test matches in today's day and age means a year and a half or 2 years worth of cricket. And he hasn't really put a foot wrong. Yes, he failed in South Africa, but you look at how versatile he is, right? He has
that was only 2 tests as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he has his attritional strokes. He has his unorthodoxy as well. If he wants to shut up shop and be conservative, he can do that. If he wants to go out there and smash it, he can do that very well as well. He has Mamba mentality based on the little banter that he had with Mitch Stark, telling him that he's too slow after Stark had told Harshit Rana that he's quicker than him. So he had that, feisty nature about him. And he seems to be a very no-nonsense sort of character. Now, we don't know if he'll remain that way and how his career progresses. But based on everything we've seen thus far, like game versus pace, sure, he's a bit vulnerable versus the drive, but his spin game is also otherworldly, and he's an opener, so he gets to do or face the new ball, toughest period in a test match, and he has done so well regardless. Like when he scores his hundreds, they're massive ones, and
it's worth saying, you say that he's an opener, but he's an opener particularly in a period when no one is a good opener.
Yes.
And I think that is really, really impressive, isn't it? Like the ability to not just Australia can't find an opener in Shield cricket at the moment. England can't find an opener in county cricket at the moment. All right. South Africa and, all these different teams, even when New Zealand found openers, they sort of started to regress again, right? No one in Bangladesh or West Indies can score in the top of the order. And yet, he's not just scoring, he's dominating. And I think that's a really important thing to remember as well.
Yeah, he can play different roles. And look, in this match, sure, India was scoring heaps of runs, but they weren't free-flowing runs. They had to work really hard for their runs. The outfield was slow as well, right? And towards the end of that innings, variable bounce also start to come into play. So I feel like this was definitely his best knock in a very short career thus far because of the context. India down in the dumps, swept 3-0 at home by New Zealand. First time they've lost a test series at home in 12 years. Then you have to win the Border Gavaskar Trophy to stand a chance for World Cup or World Test Championship final qualification. And your team is under strength. So there's more load on you. So he absolutely aced it. And I'm so here for him to go on and become a better batter than the people who you were too afraid to mention.
Yeah. So it's not even being too afraid to mention it. It's because I don't want to be in a situation where something does go wrong and we start to go like he gets in his own bubble and everything, and I think that's fine. He's probably in the next 2 to 3 years going to find a level of fame that is so ridiculously high, and it will be different than what Sachin had to go through. It will be different to what Virat had to go through. They had their challenges in different ways, of course, and who knows what kind of the one thing that might help him in the future is that the IPL teams kind of segment your fan bases now. So you're a Virat person or you're a Rohit person. So things like that might help him rather than the whole country, getting on him. But the point is that like we're in such a 24-hour social media news cycle, and every inch of his life is going to be unpacked and repacked and sold and put on lunchboxes and everything else.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to see him bat. I don't really care about any of the other stuff. And he's the most exciting batting prospect I've seen. Sorry, I shouldn't even say most exciting. He's the most can't miss batting prospect I've seen since Joe Root, right?
Wow.
Joe Root was the last one that, Australia with match factor of 1.85. That's ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah,
85% better than the other batters in the team. Yeah.
85%. Let that sink in, guys.
But you go through the history of the game. There are, Neil Harvey's a really interesting one. Neil Harvey was and started even younger than Jaiswal did, right? And just could never match what he did as a younger player, right? And he became the next Bradman after Bradman, right? And that pressure eventually sort of got to him a little bit, right? You've got, you're being the next Virat after Virat, and you're being the next Sachin after Sachin in this generation, right? Like it's that sort of stuff. I kind of wish we could take him away from everything and just let him bat and be 85% better than everyone for the next 10 years. But there's going to be so many challenges out there. There are flaws within his game at the moment that I think he can overcome them. I think they're better than some of the other flaws I've seen of some of the younger prospects, like someone like Cameron Green. Where with Cameron Green's, I'm like, I don't know how Cameron Green fixes this instantly. Whereas I look at Jaiswal and I'm like, oh, I can see how he can work this one out. So it's fascinating where it goes next. But what a player, what an innings, and also one of the best second inning scores after a duck in the history of the game. Yeah. Which I can't remember. I think it was Laurie Colliver on Foxtel who came up with that. I never even thought to look at that. What a brilliant stat that is.
Yeah. Also, he was toying with Manas, right? With the whole run-out situation.
Yeah,
so
yeah, I
he
did
was
like
really
that.
there. He was giving it back to the Aussies, and who doesn't love that? And also, it's not like he was like flat out arrogant. He was just having a bit of fun, and that's what I like about Yashasvi Jaiswal. Of course, he's done so much hard work just getting to this point in the first place. That level of grind is now finally paying off, and I expect big things from him in the future. Yeah, him and Gill might be the next toxic fan base wars. Who knows? Like Rohit and Kohli, right? Of course, there are other batters who did well for India, and before we get to the return of the king, let's talk about KL Rahul, right? Interesting game for all of his detractors, which are plenty. He scored 26 runs in the first innings, and his dismissal was very controversial, right? I wouldn't have given it out because there weren't enough angles, and I'm really surprised to see how they overturned that decision. That was really bonkers, if you ask me. And then he scores 77 in the second innings, builds that partnership with Yashasvi Jaiswal. He looked assured in his stroke play. He was committing to the ball, front foot, back foot, all of that stuff. Looked very comfortable out there. That dismissal that he had in the India A game seems like an eternity ago, right? Where he was kind of leaving the ball and got cleaned up. And, you know, he is a versatile bat. He can bat from 1 to 6. That's what's kept him in this team. And once again, he's proven to the Indian public that he remains an asset for the cricket team. He's got the best overseas average since 2021 amongst Indian batters. You've got to factor that in. We were all shocked when we saw that stat when Cheyenne or Varun, one of those guys, brought it up. Himmy Bear completely lost his shit.
You can see him and Ash, by the way, on this channel. I don't think we put the video up yet, but of the podcast that we did with him the other day. Okay, I think I probably said everything I ever need to say about KL Rahul, and I base that on the fact I've also written a feature about him that's going to come out probably at some stage during this series. It's just, he's clearly a test match quality batter, and he hasn't always made the runs, and he's been yanked around in and out the side and up and down the order a little bit. He's probably, his best spot is opening, but he can't always open. And
he's always been a stopgap player. Even in this match, he's stopgap. Right?
And 5 minutes ago, he was told that he was going to be a specialist number 5 and 6, wasn't he? And like now he's opening again. He might, if Shubman Gill isn't available for the next test, he might bat at 3, right? Like it's
and
very
then
possible.
when he is available, Shubman, he might bat at 6, right?
You know what I mean? and we have to factor that in. And it's something I've been looking at a lot with some of the great England batters of like, you look at them and I can't remember who it was. It's one of the great older batters. I can't remember if it was Barrington or someone else, but it's just like, if this guy just stayed at the position he was good at, right? He's probably, up there with that sort of George Headley level. I can't remember who the player was. Maybe it wasn't Barrington, so I might be wrong there. But they didn't, because the England middle order was chaotic for like 2 decades, where they would literally turn up to a test and just change it again. And you're batting at 6 this time, and you're batting at 3 at this time. That affects people, right?
Yes.
And specifically,
also, online trolling affects people.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say, and then specifically, I think the T20 stuff, he's kind of brought on himself, right? Like, at this stage, he's just not playing the way that we would like him to play in T20 cricket, and the game has moved on a little bit. Obviously, his owner made a mistake, twice, really, the owner made a mistake. Talking to him on the field publicly, and then also being in a situation where he released that comment about, everyone, we want people to play for the team. You don't need to do that. Right?
We want a captain who plays for the team rather than himself.
Yeah.
I think those were Goenka's words.
Yeah, you don't need to do that sort of stuff, right? But at the same time, that frustration from the owner is the same frustration that everyone has had with him. So let's take the T20 stuff out.
Yeah.
And we come back to Test cricket. He hasn't made as many runs, even when you factor in the pitches he's played on. He just hasn't made enough runs in those situations. If he averaged between 38 and 42, right, and occasionally played the innings that he plays, that is a perfectly respectable player in this era that he's been playing in. And he hasn't been able to do that. But the thing that is so annoying with him is the South Africa innings, this innings, some of the other innings that we've seen him play are just magnificent, right? They're magnificent, and we know how good he can be. And in some ways, I think some of the hatred at him and some of the trolling and all that sort of stuff is nonsensical, right? But the frustration isn't, right? We know that KL Rahul is better in probably every format except for one-day cricket than he has shown us so far.
One-day cricket, he nearly averages 50. So
one-day cricket, no one's got any issue, right? But in the other 2 formats, we know he leaves something on the table. And so there is a frustration there, right? And this thing from Genie here, just hope he blooms like Khawaja or Rohit. I think Genie actually sent another message in on one of the other chats. Chris Rogers was another name he mentioned. Rahul should know his game now. He looks to me like an incredible athlete. He takes care of himself. You know,
he's got fantastic hair now. Love his
fantastic hair, brilliant hair.
Yeah.
As long as he doesn't have an injury that slows him down or he doesn't lose his reflexes or anything, he still has a chance of having a really good late 30s run. And I would also hope that in modern cricket, that's the thing we start to see is, you know, we've had batters do that before. You know, Graham Gooch is, you know, one of the most famous examples. Misbah of recent times is another one.
Yeah.
All right. Mike Hussey, I suppose you would be another one. But now with the professionalism, the ability that he has, I mean, Rahul is the world's greatest substitute teacher because of the ability he gives you. He's like Will Young on steroids, right? Because of the ability he gives you in each position and also the wicket keeping. It's such incredible flexibility. But he just has to do it more often. And there's no one who doesn't think that, including Rahul.
Yeah. And I mean, look, the only worry I have for him with respect to a potential late bloom is that he won't have a fixed batting position. Even in this very series, he might be batting 3 different positions.
I also think it's a really hard team to have a late bloom in because, you know, you've got all these incredible younger players coming through and, you know, with Sarfraz's first-class average and Shreyas Iyer's first-class average and all these other people that will come through. It's a hard team. And that was, you know, Mike Hussey was kind of lucky that he was coming in just at a bit of a point where a couple of people weren't doing very well and then was so good. The difference is that Mike Hussey, when he was crap, no one knew who he was, right? Whereas the problem with Rahul is he can have 4 good years here and still only end up averaging 42. Right, which is what I call the Zach Crawley effect, and it's really unfortunate on those guys. It's not their fault that they were always kept in the side. They're just players. Yeah. They're just trying to do their best. Sometimes it's better to be out the team than it is in the team, and then if you get in at the right time, you look really good.
I mean, he was looking very, very comfortable out there, which will probably earn him the entire series. Yeah, both innings. I think he's going to play every single test match here, and I want him to at this point as well. But there was another Indian batter who impressed us a lot. Virat Kohli.
I was like, who are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, yeah, I remember. Now I remember that guy.
Yeah. He had scored, 2 test stuns in the last 5 years, and this was coming up pre-series. A lot of people were talking about it. Ponting brought it up. Gambhir got pissed at him. And after scoring 5 in the first innings and then dropping that dolly, which he couldn't get over, right? He was really impacted by that drop catch for a while. Virat went on to score an unbeaten 100 in the third innings, his 30th test stun. 9 of those have come against Australia. 7 of those 9 have come in Australia, and he has 81 centuries in total now in international cricket, 19 behind Sachin. And what I really liked in this game was that he was sweeping and reverse sweeping and doing things that Virat doesn't really do. And, you know, it wasn't the most important knock of the test match, and it came at a time where the pressure wasn't really high, but you still got to give it to him. Man absolutely loves batting in Australia, and he gave the fans exactly what they came for.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the match situation or anything, and I'm not worried about the 100 because obviously I don't give a shit about hundreds, as everyone on Twitter is now finding out. But what I'm most interested in is how he looked. So in the first innings, he was on off stump and he was cramped and he was halfway down the crease, and there was all this fascination. I mean, talking about techniques, Crunk's not going to be happy here, but there was all this fascination about where he was standing down the wicket, and no one was noticing that he was well across the crease as well. And I think, and I went back and had a look at the 70 he made in New Zealand, and I've been using the 70 he made in Bengaluru as a kind of template because I thought that was when his balance looked good and his footwork looked good and his decision making was back. And that was the innings, and also I could have as well looked at the one in South Africa, which I think again he played a really good knock in one of those matches as well. And I think he's just better when he's more that leg stump line. He has a little trigger that moves him across the middle stump as well. But otherwise, he's like halfway down the wicket, shuffling across, going forward, and all these things. He just didn't do that in the second innings. Yeah. Pressure off, fine. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about how he's looking. And he looked absolutely sensational. So now that's 2 innings I've seen in the last 4 test matches where his balance and head and hands and feet, most importantly, I suppose, with him, have all looked really good. There's plenty of good signs there that he's coming ahead. And it's the same with Steve Smith, who we probably won't talk about much on today's show. But you know, I watched Steve Smith in that second innings on a wicket. He doesn't bat very well in the fourth.
He wasn't shuffling.
But I was just like, he just looks like he's seeing the ball better than he has for a little while. And as you said, he wasn't shuffling. His ability to turn that off, and that's the complete opposite of Virat. So they're 2 very different players. But
Virat's dismissal was a familiar one in the first innings, right? Ball got big on him, edges it to the slips. We've seen that a few times now.
But I think he was setting up to stop that dismissal, right? By moving to off stump. And it's like, and by being down the wicket, and it was like, mate, just get back to normal batting. You're going to get the odd one that does that. Get back to what you do best. You know, and we talked about that with Babar Azam with his problem as well. Went back to leg stump in the second innings. Was a bit more settled in the crease. I don't mind being down the wicket because a lot of people are doing that with the wobble ball and everything else.
The baseball shuffle. There's a foot marks on that. You guys should go check it out.
So I have no issue with him coming down the wicket, but he looked lost doing it, partly because of where he was around off stump. The other thing I would say is, and this is the thing that weirdly has got me in trouble, is, but in the last year, we've started to see him really sacrifice for the team, right?
Yes.
So IPL cricket, T20 in that World Cup.
Yep.
And now here, the fact that the 100 was obviously important to him because he hasn't made a lot, right? But it wasn't like, I'm going to get my 100. It's, we need it quickly. So I'm going to take a bunch of risks. And if I get my 100, that's fine. And if I don't, I still feel like I've batted really well here. And, you know, and remember, he did play in that mini collapse as well. Like when I know
Absolutely.
8 for 3 is not the end of the world when they were massively in front. But we've seen Australian teams storm back into gaps like that before, right? And you know, he got them through that. And I was talking to Saurabh Samani on TalkSport, and he was sort of saying, in the past, you know, we've had a situation where he would have been part of that mini collapse, right? And instead, he was the steadying hand all the way through. I was just really impressed with the way he batted. Less so the actual runs, more so the method, and as you said, playing reverse sweeps and everything else. And then at the end, the 100 is important, and I'm going to go for it quickly. But it doesn't matter if I go out because we need quick runs one way or another.
Yeah, and that shows you that he's a team player. And also, I mean, look, it goes on to be a sort of testament to his character, the fact that he was having a shit game and he was woefully out of form, right? Dropping that catch, I was noting how Virat was just, you know, very, very unnerved for quite a while. Or nerved, sorry, not unnerved. He was nerved and he was talking to Bumrah about it. Lots was happening. And then he goes out and plays that brisk knock and bags a red inker for 100. I mean, I'm personally really happy for him. I hope that he has a wonderful series. And I also love the fact that he never wastes any opportunity to celebrate his partner. He was even talking to Gilly about it. And, you know, he's gotten a lot of shit for this. So I'm happy that he's finally having his moment.
I mean, it's been a tough few years, really. I mean, going back to the conversation with Jaiswal, like, it's great to be the king. It's not great to be the king, you know, when you're not stealing taxes off people. I've just realized that that's not a good analogy, is it? Like, why do we always say that phrase? Kings are horrible. There shouldn't be kings. But you know what I mean? It's great to be on top, but then when you slip, the other side comes up. And, you know, you go back to all the lives you and I did around the New Zealand series, and it was just, drop Kohli, he's finished, and everything else. And I didn't quite feel that. If it didn't come back here, I would have been really, really worried. He likes the extra pace on the ball, and he got the extra pace on the ball, and he batted beautifully.
Absolutely. Another batter who was actually, or all-rounder, who was on Test match debut, he liked the pace on the ball as well. I mean, Nitish Kumar Reddy didn't score a 50, but 41 in the first innings, 39 unbeaten in the second. That flick that he scored, right? Some very free-flowing shots and took the attack right to the Aussies, put them under pressure. You really wanted Hardik Pandya in this series, but Nitish hasn't really done all that bad, right? It's a dream debut if you think about it.
Yeah, it's the bowling I want Hardik for, though, brother. Not, you know, I had no problem with Nitish Reddy's batting.
He did clean up Mitch Marsh.
He did. I mean, it was a dirty drag on. You know, I actually thought he bowled a lot of good balls before that, and then the wicket he got. Did you see the Hawkeye of that, by the way, where they re-showed it? It was like, it was a straight ball hitting the stumps. I was like, guys, that was like 3 meters outside off stump. Have you pressed the wrong button here? Yeah, no. I mean, I thought he bowled well in the last innings, but the steam was out of the game, and the wicket was really up and down for him, almost more than anyone else. So good on him for getting that kind of action off the surface. But look, he had a good game. I don't have any issue. I think that the problem I would have is in a game where one of their frontline seamers goes away. That's when you want Hardik, right? True. When one of the and also Hardik gives you 2 or 3 overs of bounces that you don't have to take out of your main fast bowlers if you need that. It was really interesting, by the way, that neither of the teams really, like, it took Australia forever to go to the bouncer strategy. If you were on our Discord channel, I think almost every time I was like, where are the bouncers? What's happening here? Like, I don't understand why we didn't see that. And then by the time Australia went to it, the game was almost over for them at that point. But yes, but just in general, that's what I like about Hardik. He's obviously you know, I mean, I just really trust him as a cricketer, but his versatility as a fifth bowler is really impressive. In a way that even Shardul, Shardul is a wicket taker, but he doesn't have the sort of versatility of someone like Hardik.
Absolutely. And I mean, as far as bounces go, Hardik definitely has that edge over Nitish Kumar Reddy. But Reddy is 21. He could develop, and this is as good a start as he could have hoped for. Now, time to talk about Australia's batting. We've saved it for last.
This won't take long because we didn't see many balls.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Head was the only Australian batter who scored 50 plus in this game. He scored 89 in the fourth innings. And Australia's top four is in tatters. We kind of talked about this in the preview as well. I think the guys showed me a bar chart of Australian batters' form in their last 10 test matches. And I think only Mitch Marsh was averaging over 30. I might be wrong about this. So Varun, if you can it was
over like 35, wasn't it? I think there was a couple of players maybe in low 30s because I think Cummins was one of them and Carey. So, but you're right.
Yeah. No, it was definitely something like that. And I mean, all right, Nathan McSweeney was always going to be a gamble, not an opener, and facing Bumrah up front. No clue why he was facing the first ball. I don't know why Ozzy didn't take that off of him. And then Usman Khawaja had an off game. There's no doubt about it. Manas felt like he needs to retire tomorrow, right? Couldn't buy a run in the first innings. Like he was struggling big time and getting hit on the body over and over again. And even though he was dropped on a duck, really didn't make India pay. And then Steve Smith, that first innings dismissal, I remember I asked you, I was like, Jarrod, is this like an eyesight thing where, his eyes might have gone? Because that same ball, like Steve Smith, the shuffler, would put bat on ball in the first innings more often than not in the past. So it's not just them. Like Head got runs, sure, and Marsh scored 47. But they're really relying on Marsh, Head, and Carey at this point because, I don't know, this has got to be one of the most fragile-looking Australian batting orders that we've seen in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, Khawaja had a bad test. I think he definitely deserved, we don't have any issue with him. He might be, I mean, you know how I feel. I feel like he is on the decline and it's over, but he deserves to have a bad couple of tests and we'll see how he goes when he comes back. So that's fine. McSweeney obviously can't open and especially against Bumrah right at the moment. Maybe no one can open, but McSweeney
looked like Nathan McStreaky.
Hey, so that's a bit of an issue. Manas, I think Australia need to do what Pakistan did, but in a more humane way, and a more realistic way, and just say to him, "Look, mate, we've got a week off now, and we've got a week, and then we've got the Adelaide Test, right? We plan. Why don't we bring you back from Melbourne, and why don't you just have a break? We'll bring in a backup opener." To, whether it be Renshaw or Bancroft or Harris, whoever they want, right? Constas, I don't care, right? Just for the next couple of tests. And we'll tell them it's just for the next couple of tests, right? Like it's an injury. Just go and have a moment, right? Yeah. There's clearly something not working at the moment with Manas, and he just needs a slight break. I thought Smith started to move well. So I'm interested to see if we see any runs from Smith in the next test match. Just because I felt like he was picking the ball up better, and I'm less worried about someone going out for a golden duck. Yeah. The real question though is, let's say Smith is okay and he averages 40 for the rest of the series, which might be quite healthy for this series, but let's say he does, and the other three continue to make runs and they all look in pretty good form. I mean, Mitch Marsh made good runs when he came. By the time he came in on the wicket, it was doing a bit. So I was quite happy with his knock, and I suppose same as Carey as well.
Carey looked in good touch. I'll say that for sure.
So the question I have, and I asked this of Saurabh, and I've kind of been mulling it a little bit, is India look quite good at the moment, but there should be a bit. Australia should get a little bit better, and India might get a little bit worse, just as terms of form from this game. I know their team can get better, and Australia's can't, but just on terms of form, right? India was so red hot, and Australia was so ice cold. But my question is, can Australia win without a top three making runs, right? And
they
it's
scored
unlikely.
342 runs on aggregate in this test match. And I mean, this batting won't cut it. At least this form won't cut it. You look at the names and you're fine. You're like, okay, those are good names. But Manas right now, look, they showed that breakdown, right? First 30 test matches averaging 60, which we all remember. Yeah. And in the last 20, 21, 22, he's averaged 30 odd. And this match, I mean, he really seemed like he couldn't pick up a bat. He couldn't bat on ball at all. So there are major question marks on Australia's batting, and that is going to be the big takeaway for them going into the pink ball test.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. Pink ball test should be a low-scoring test as well, right? So we shouldn't expect a bounce back in this test from the top three. But the question is, can they just carry the top three at home? And I have seen them win a test series at home before, but it was against a kind of a broken England side, but a good England side in 13-14, but it was broken kind of by the time it got there. That was
Good
without
broken English side.
Well, they had won the series just before that, and they were, on top of the world not long before that. But by the time they got to Australia, it was clear that it was falling apart. But if you remember in that series, their top order never made any runs, right? It was literally Haddon and whichever tail ender was around over and over again. It was helped by the fact that Ryan Harris was in career best form and Mitchell Johnson had the summer of his life, right? So I'm not saying that it's easy. Australia essentially won that series with about 3 or 4 players. It's a ridiculous series. There's a very good middle order here, I think, that look like they're in good touch at the moment. But they're going to have to be in really early. And that's the question, right, of how that works. Also, does Australia just... did they pull the plug on McSweeney after one test? Probably not, because there isn't a good replacement out there. Do they drop Marnus at the moment? I think they kind of might have to from that point of view. But you look at who's outside the team. You look at who's outside India's team and look at who's outside Australia's team. India's team has so many backups at so many different positions. And Australia just doesn't have that, especially with the bat. Bowling is a little bit different because I know Michael Neese is injured. And is Jai Richardson injured? I feel like he's always injured.
He's always injured. But Scotty Boland is around and the
Scott
MCG
Boland's
test is coming up. Yeah.
Scott Boland's there. And there's another guy as well who I've forgotten. There's a couple of good bowlers that they could bring in if they wanted to mix things up without too many issues. And Todd Murphy obviously isn't as good as Nathan Lyon, but could do a similar kind of job to Nathan Lyon in some of those matches. They have backups with the bowling. They have and they backups with the middle order. They have no backups with the top order. So if the top order doesn't work, that's why my question is literally, can they win this series without a top 3? Because there is a possibility that that's what they might have to do.
Yeah, and Usman Khawaja will have to play a really big role over here for Australia to bounce back. I feel like he's the guy. And Steve Smith, obviously, of course. And Pat Cummins will have to improve with the ball. There's a lot that Australia need to work on, but I feel like batting is the biggest question mark. If you go back to the first innings where they bowled India out for 150, spectacular effort. Took that amazing parried catch as well, McSweeney and Labuschagne, which was their best moment of the game, surprisingly. But they dropped 2 catches, the Cummins one and then Khawaja at the end. Then there was that review that they never took when Nitish edged one down the leg side. I'm not saying Australia lost because of these things, but based on what we've seen from India, I feel like they can ill afford many mistakes over here because Australia are up against it now. And even though they have every opportunity or chance to come back in the series, like I would still favor them in the pink ball test, right? For instance. But I feel like, India going after that three-peat and they have World Test Championship qualification on the line, final, that is. And a lot of people had written them off. Whereas Australia, people were saying they're shoo-ins. If they lose the series, they've got Sri Lanka coming up and things get complicated, right? It's gotten really interesting.
Well, I think if Australia loses series, I don't think they can make the World Test Championship anymore.
Depends on how badly they lose the series.
The Australia top 3 averaged 47 in 2013-14 Ashes. My God. Okay. That's not ideal. So yeah, I think, there's Cummins, I think, should be better for the run. Stark should be better for the pink ball.
Yes, of course. He's at his devastating best with the pink ball. Probably the best ever pink ball bowler.
Yeah, and I think Head hadn't made runs in a little while. So I know we all feel like he's in form because we've seen him make runs in other things. But in Test cricket, he hadn't made runs in a little while. So that was really good. Carey's form seems to have maintained, and Mitch Marsh's form seems to maintain. And if you take Steve Smith's 20 odd or whatever it was, 18, he didn't even make that many. But if you take the way he was moving, the way he was thinking, the way he was picking the ball up as a potential good sign, and in the same way that you would say that Cummins is better for the run, maybe Smith will be slightly better for the run from that same kind of thing. There are some positives there, but the difference is that Mohammad Shami, he's still in India, so Mohammad Shami may not be playing in the next test, but, I didn't know Head had gone so bad before this, but...
Yeah, no, we knew that. I saw that on the graphic. Like, Head was quite low.
I knew him. I mean is before this test, I knew he'd been bad. But this is where the bleed of all the different formats comes in, and you can never remember who's in form in what format at any one time. But yeah, so I think there is an element of there are some things that could go in Australia's favour, even if they can't fix the fundamental flaw of this side. And we obviously talked about this. The top 4 being a flaw beforehand. I did it on my video, and I actually thought people were underplaying how bad the top 4 had been. They're not anymore.
Everyone's talking about it now.
Yeah, but the point being is that there are other things that can come together for Australia, but India can get Mohammad Shami back. They can get Shubman Gill back. They will get Rohit Sharma back. There's a few, even they might keep Washington just because that's the way that they want to go. But they could bring Jadeja back for the next test as well.
Yes,
if they
I would
wanted
do
to.
it. I would definitely do that. But, it's interesting with the pink ball test coming up and India potentially getting some of their stars back. Australia probably go unchanged. But I suppose if Shami is back, Rana goes out. If Rohit is back, then Devdutt Padikkal obviously goes out and he opens. And then KL will just either bat as opener, first drop, number 6. We don't really know. Dhruv Jurel might get another game because a lot of people were impressed by him in the A game.
Well, I mean, I think this is the issue with the Washington Sundar move. And Saurabh brought this up, and I think I talked about it on the scoreboard today as well. Let's just imagine Gill comes back, right? And we know Rohit's going to come back. So both of them are going to play in the next test. And Shami does fly over, and he's going to play in the next test. They've just won a test by 295 runs. Taking Washington out is making 4 changes, right? To a team that's just won by a lot of runs. And that was Saurabh's point of like, that's a change you don't even have to necessarily make. Now, of course, we know what will happen is, like, if they struggle in that test match and Washington doesn't take any wickets, everyone will be like, they should have made the 4th change. But you could see why any cricket team would be like, no, let's just pull back on this a little bit. But either way, and it's the same with Jarrod. Jarrod looked really good in the first. Was it the first innings? Yeah, the first innings, right? So I have no problem with it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Also, Aditya Kane with a super chat over here says, is India actually a better team when they are under strength, like against the previous or in that previous tour of Australia or last year's England tour of India and this test match? It's a very interesting kind of case study because you've got a point over there, right? The Gabba test back in the day and then the England series as well. They were not entirely under strength, but there were some players missing. Kohli was not available, right?
Yeah. They're pretty good when they're full strength too. Like, I mean, they won 18 series in a row at home.
It goes on to pay homage to their bench strength as well, I suppose, in Test cricket.
I think that's really what it says. Is even in an era where it's hard for some of these players to play a lot of first class cricket, the talent pool in Indian cricket is so massively high that it really, really helps. And we have seen. Do you remember that? Was it the 2003 World Cup? Australia lost Shane Warne and Jason Gillespie for very different reasons before that tournament began. And like Andy Bickle came in and got a 7-wicket haul and won a game with the bats. And Brad Hogg ended up being Australia's frontline spinner in limited overs cricket, on and off, I suppose you would say. He did it for one period, then he came back again for another period. Yeah. So won a couple of World Cups, made it to a semi-final of a T20 World Cup, I think, as well. Many years later,
international cricket at your age.
No, he was way older than me, wasn't he?
Older than you?
Wasn't he 46
I don't know.
or 47?
Might have been. He was super old by that time.
Maybe it wasn't international. That might have been IPL. But yeah, he was really, really old. So that was that period of Australian cricket, right? Where you would have Stuart Law and, Martin Love and Matthew Elliott not in the main side. And a guy like Brad Williams came in, was bowling 90-mile-an-hour outswing. And Mark Taylor said, he's got to do that more consistently to get into the side. Matthew Innes with a first-class bowling average of 25 bowling left arm, doesn't get in the side. Like, a lot of good players didn't even get in. Like, Mike Hussey got dropped from Western Australia. Mike Hussey got dropped by Western Australia. Western Australia was so good that they were like, this guy's not doing well at the moment. We'll move on from him at the moment. David Hussey couldn't get into Western Australia's team, right? Like, at all. So that talent that was around at that stage, and you now look at India, and it's a really similar thing. Like, Prithvi Shaw's feels done. It's like, Prithvi Shaw is such a high-level talent. He's like a ridiculous... T. Natarajan came in for a test match, and then they're like, we're done, buddy. You've done your job. We'll see you back in the IPL. It's like, he's a really good bowler. I mean, obviously, I'm massively high on him, but he's a really good, smart, talented bowler, right?
Australia would kill for that bench strength, by the way, because as we have just discussed, they don't have a lot of reserves available. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's what this really tells you, Aditya. Anyway, next super chat then, I suppose, because we don't really have much to talk about. Let's quickly go through these, Varun. All right, ABCDEF says, Behram, love the enthusiasm, but please let Jarrod finish his points. The preview was a bit hard to follow because of that. I mean, look, it's a conversation, and Jarrod speaks for eons, and sometimes I get a point which I'm afraid I will lose. And yeah, I mean, that's how these things happen. I don't know. I don't know what to think.
I've talked about this before because people have brought this up, not just with you, but in general, like, and I've had this brought up with me in other places. The best thing that you can listen to is a conversation. And that means that sometimes we are going to talk over each other, because go and listen to your friends have a great conversation about something. That is what they do. What you don't want it to be, and I've worked with professional podcasts where I've had to retrain people because of this, is one person speaks for 3 minutes, one person speaks for 7 minutes, one person speaks. That is boring as batshit. We're going to have a conversation. I'm going to talk over him. He's going to talk over me. It'd be much easier if we're in person, because it's actually an easier pattern in person than it is here.
We did figure that out when we were actually in person. We were never talking over each other. And I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. And it'll happen with Varun as well. It'll happen with anyone. And you're doing podcasts wrong if you're not actually interrupting. That's what I feel.
I 100% agree on that. It should be a conversation. It should be a flow. And, you might come up with a point that you, as you said, that you don't want to lose. So this is how we do it, everyone. If you want to hear me uninterrupted, go on my many shows where I'm on my own for hours on end.
All right. Next super chat then. We've got Samit Khan. He says, drag the game against Scotland to eliminate England, and you probably have to ask one of those batters that question, Hazelwood, you legend. I mean, what can we even add to that?
I forgot about that, actually. That's probably why Australia don't let him talk to the press, by the way. I remember, this is one of those conversations, but I remember him having this really big argument over Big Bash with someone who worked in the Big Bash. And both people had really good points, and it wasn't pointed to me as if Hazelwood was wrong or anything, but this other person was trying to say, if we're going to make it a better league, we need to do this. And Hazelwood was like, and the things he was saying, I was like, oh, now I get why, sometimes they put him on the back burner a little bit, because when he says something, right?
All right, then, Josh Hazelwood. We'll look forward to future presses. Now, Dal Khichri with a super chat says, Indian batters seem to match up very well against the Aussie quartet since 2018. What are these guys doing differently compared to other batters, since this is not a flash in the pan thing either? Absolutely not. They've lost, one or two test matches across, 11 tests is it now in Australia? It's gotten quite ridiculous, that stat. And clearly they're doing something well. Jarrod can probably tell you more.
I think Pujara was a huge part of it, and he's no longer here. So, and I do think in those other series, they kind of let Australia punch themselves out. At this stage, Australia was so worried about being punched out that they used Marnus as a quick bowler. So the Indian players are slightly in their heads. I'd have to go, when you say something like that, it's really hard, because you have to go into individual matchups to see what the real overall issues are all the way through. I've got a feeling that we talked about this in our group the other day, or we put it up in a video, that Mitchell Stark's never been particularly good against India. Does that sound right?
Yes. He's quite a horrendous record, I feel like.
I think that's an important one.
I can't quite remember, though. Yeah.
If you're a quartet and you've got him and you've got Nathan Lyon. So I think Nathan Lyon averages 37 or 38 against India in Australia, right? Which is not terrible, considering they're very good players, the spin and everything. But it's also, he would average probably closer to 30, 32, I would say, against other teams. So you've got one player who naturally, just because of the way that India play spin, is worse. And you've got another player who doesn't match up particularly well. That's leaving you with two players. And that's why India and England and other sides and Australia themselves are so desperate for all-rounders, right? That's one of the reasons, so you can rely on multiple bowlers.
All right, then. Next super chat, please, Varun. We've got Rishabh Genius. He asks, controversial take, but not having Rohit was a blessing in disguise. In New Zealand series, he was very often captaincy. Bumrah came in as a breath of fresh air. Now, Saad, my pro sports co-host, had the same opinion. I feel like this is a bit overplayed. I'm not saying Bumrah wasn't good. I felt like he was relentless. He kept the pressure on. But then again, it was one of those surfaces where you've got to keep the quicks on for long spells. And I
actually think he kept this quicks on for too long in the first innings, and he was thinking like a bowling captain and not thinking like someone who should be upsetting the pattern. In the second innings, it was an easy captaincy because they were just so far ahead of the game. So I wasn't, Rishabh, I wasn't sitting there going, oh, India looks so much better because Jasprit Bumrah is captain. So I don't necessarily agree with that. And I take it back. I can't remember when this was, but when MS Dhoni, there was a series where Anil Kumble and MS Dhoni both captained like alternate games. And like you got a real sense of what the previous captain did and what the new captain was doing. That was a situation where I was like, oh, this is obvious. This other guy is an absolute genius. And Anil Kumble is just keeping the engine ticking over. I've not felt that way with Rohit Sharma at all. And it's funny how very recently, and the New Zealand series is a big part of it, suddenly he's gone from being everyone talking up his captaincy to suddenly talking down his captaincy.
Yeah.
I thought he made a couple of errors in that New Zealand series, but I think he's still being remembered for the Bengaluru toss, which New Zealand also got wrong. Both teams misread those conditions, right?
Yes.
And realistically, they still shouldn't have been bowled out for 12 or whatever it was.
Yeah, absolutely. Although I will say this in Jaiswal Bumrah's defense that, he was captain and kind of orchestrated this win initially on his own. So that does kind of show you what sort of character he is.
But did he do it with captaincy or did he do it with bowling?
No. He did by leading from the front.
Which is fine, right?
Yeah, his own way, displaying his skills.
Yeah, I have absolutely no issue in him getting the credit for the win. But if we're just talking captaincy, I didn't see this as a test match where the captaincy was the most important thing.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, next super chat, Varun. We've got Srinivas, who asks, "I'm here because of only Jarrod. I love his videos about cricket statistics on Indian players."
That's just Srinivas just trying to get back now. If we could keep a live scoreboard, thank you very much, Srinivas.
Yeah.
And thank you for the super chat.
And it's quite a generous donation as well. All right, Vamsi Krishna with the next super chat. He says, "Is Bumrah among the top 20 test bowlers of all time?" It's got a pretty solid case by this point, yeah, I'd say.
I mean, the 200 wickets is the only thing stopping him. I've said that before. And he's not. It's not like when he gets to 200 wickets, he's got an average of 24 or something, right? It's even if he struggled in the next few test matches, he's still going to average like 21 or 22 probably by the time he gets there. Yeah. If you take 200 test wickets and average of 21 or 22, I think you have a very good claim to be in the top 20 test bowlers of all time, considering that he's an Asian seamer and everything else. Go to one of the many videos we've talked about. We're comparing him to Sid Barnes. Sid Barnes has the best bowling average of anyone over 150 wickets.
Yeah, and we've said time and again that he's definitely the best all-format bowler and arguably the best all-format cricketer in contemporary cricket. So he is a freak of nature and also a master of all of his skills. So yeah, for me, he doesn't have to get to 200 wickets, actually. I feel like his peak is better than any other peak that I've ever seen, at least in my lifetime.
Had two different super chats. Did Varun mean to take the other one down?
Oh, Varun, go back to the next one. We're done here. Mayank Ahuja asks, Australia beat New Zealand at the start of the year. New Zealand beat India a month earlier. And now India have defeated Australia in just one match of the first game. How does one analyze this or just enjoy these uncertainty in tests? We've got a video out on this, don't we?
Yeah, I just made it. So it'll be up. And I think it's on the main channel already, actually.
I think it's up. Go watch that video, Mayank.
The one thing I would say is, and I didn't get a chance to do it for this video, but I did want to have a look at it. Do you know about the world heavyweight belt theory in professional sports?
No.
So in boxing, you get the heavyweight belt if you beat someone, right?
Yes.
So, or not the heavyweight, you get your belt, whichever boxing it is, right? So if you beat someone once, you're the number one in the world, even though that other person might be better and they slipped on a banana or, something went wrong in that fight. And there are people that track sports that way, because it's a fun way of doing it. And I remember someone doing it with Test cricket a while back. I think it was on Reddit or somewhere else, but I've seen it in other places on the old cricket web forums and everywhere else where people have done stuff like that. This year would be fascinating. The Bannerman Shield. Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, there you go. That's a great name for it. But I think if this year would be so fascinating going through it, because the form line is incredible of just how these things are going in absolute circles. It's really hard to analyze. I was saying this the other day when New Zealand beat India 3-0. As an analyst and as an expert, having watched everything you said, the next two tests, India still had to start favourites and did.
Yes.
Right?
They did.
And yet, India lost 3-0. And it's the same here. Australia will probably start favourite for that next test match, and probably rightly so. And yet, India looks absolutely... Like, the whole thing's bizarre at the moment. It's a lot of fun. It's the most fun Sorry.
Yeah. No, it is the most fun I've had as well with Test cricket. Yep. Like, inject that shit into my veins, man. Test cricket is on crack, and I mean, this has been such a remarkable year in terms of results and upsets and all of that stuff. Why? Who wouldn't love it, right? Anyway, next super chat, please. We've got Rishabh Genius once again says bold prediction. Oh, he had a hot take initially, and now he has a bold prediction that Steve Smith will have a disaster series aggregate. Around 200 runs across 5 tests. I say that because more often than not, he will be in with the ball fairly new and Indian bowlers will be fresh. I don't know about that. I think he might have a test or two where he might do well.
200 runs across 5 tests. So that's an average of 20.
Yes.
That's low, isn't it?
That is
I get the point of the new ball thing. And I kind of already factored that in, Rishabh, a little bit. That's a very, very low. If that's the case, like, he's done. right? Like as a player, I think at that stage, I just think he's too clever for that. And like, I could be wrong. I think an unsuccessful series for him is averaging 35 or 40, and I think he's still more than capable of that. Let's see how he goes from here on in. But Bumrah could blow a hole in anything, and then it doesn't matter when he comes in. If he's, if he faces Bumrah every time, and Bumrah has worked out a way to skid that ball through to him early on, then all bets are off.
Yeah, but also doubt Steve Smith at your own peril. Like he is someone who always wants to kind of have the last laugh. So
I'm going to be very honest here, as someone who bets on cricket, I would not bet against Steve Smith. There are certain things that I don't bet against. I don't bet against Bumrah when he's got the ball in a T20 game, which won me a lot of money in the World Cup final, right? Like, I'm not going to bet against Steve Smith because he's just so good at finding a way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, how many super chats do we have over here, Varun? Genius Genie once again says, random, why is cricket's narrative package so bad? We're fixing that for you. Come to good areas. We've got your narrative package sorted.
What does he mean by narrative package?
I have no idea. Maybe it's talking about like arcs and subplots and, talking about the game at large.
So I think if you want to know, I'll give you this in the quickest way possible. Essentially, media has always been local, right? And so we are now only in the last 10 or 15 years. I'm the first global cricket writer, right? And my career is only 17 years in. And there weren't a lot that followed me afterwards. It's starting to happen a little bit more now. But I'm the first global cricket writer. And so we are not very good at looking at cricket as a whole. We look at it on a market-by-market basis. It's amazing how many times I will do something and someone will send me a video and go, I did something about the World Test Championship recently, and all these England fans were like, well, no one cares about that. And I was like, no one in England cares about that. A lot of other people in other countries really care about that, actually. Yeah. Everyone looks at it from their own market. And it's only just now that cricket is starting to open up. So I think the narrative package, whatever that may be, and that's also the name I have for my penis, I think it will improve.
All right, then. Not safe for work, that one, guys. Make sure you're listening to this in your on your headphones if you're at work. Varun Akavur, oh my God. He's here with a super chat. Fake Varun. Sorry, Varun Akavur. It's just that Varun Alvaconda works with us. So we're just having a bit of fun with this. He says, what changes would you suggest at the Australian domestic structure to produce more batters ready for the Test cricket? I think Jarrod has mentioned earlier how the wickets have gotten more bowler friendly in Australia in recent times. Even the broadcasters were mentioning that. So perhaps that's something they could work on.
There used to be a company in the northern suburbs of Melbourne called Platypus who made cricket balls. And they basically lost out because their cricket balls went a little bit soft and they didn't have a very strong seam, and Kookaburra kind of took over from them. I think they were the test ball originally. Certainly for a long period of time, they were a test ball. And I used to go past their factory in my tram. But my memory of them is that they had the smallest seam of any cricket ball I've ever picked up, right? I don't know if Platypus still exists or the patent on their technology is. Maybe get some harder to bowl with balls. And chuck them around for a little while and see if you can give some confidence and everything else. I really think with batting, a lot of it is just the ability to go out there and make runs consistently. And then when you get to that next level, sometimes you can just feel a little bit better. It's, we all make fun of the Brendan McCullum, Zach Crawley thing. But Zach Crawley is a bit of a mess as a batter. And occasionally he plays a great innings because Brendan McCullum keeps telling him how awesome he is.
Yeah. Also, time out in the middle always helps.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit of that. Okay, next super chat, we have got Kunal Rana. He says, how do you rate Stuart McGill? He's my favorite bowler. Wow, this is becoming really random, but I think we've done something on McGill, haven't we? All Australian spinners.
Yeah, look, he's the greatest backup spinner of all time. His average is a lot lower than it should be because he basically only played when the wickets were spinning. And unfortunately for him, he was not 5 years younger, because if he was 5 years younger, he would have had a lovely career. Rangana Harath, maybe not at that level, but a Rangana Harath end to his career. And in the end, by the time Warne left, he was finished. Obviously, he has a lot of problems off the field as well. Yeah. I loved him as a bowler as well. There were sometimes when he wasn't as good a bowler as Warne, but sometimes he was more entertaining because he could bowl half trackers, and and he was a bit of a nut. There was a vibe to him. My favorite thing about Stuart McGill, and I'll always say this, is sometimes he was more angry when he got a wicket than when he didn't.
Yeah, we definitely have done something on him. So go look at our footmarks archive. You'll find something on McGill. All right. Lokesh asks, hey guys, absolutely love your podcast. Why has Australia's bench strength decreased? Is it because of the pace pandemic as top orders suffered the most? Well, firstly, thank you. And secondly, I guess it's more of the same stuff that we've just talked about.
Yeah, I think we talked about this, and Varun put a slide in the video that we did today, Lokesh, which basically shows the average in Test cricket by season in Australia. You can see exactly when Kookaburra changed the ball.
Yes.
It's so violent when they change that ball. And because of that, that has flowed through all the way. And I think having a pronounced seam in Australia probably has a bigger impact than anyone ever thought before. A reinforced seam and then the wobble ball on top of that. Because when I first started researching the wobble ball with bowlers, everyone was like, it doesn't work in Australia. No one is saying that anymore.
Yeah. Also, the broadcasters were mentioning the new Kookaburra as well. So clearly that has a role to play.
I think it's just, I go on about this stuff a lot more than everyone else does, but I think it's just fairly well believed now that is the issue. Usman Khawaja talked about it recently, I think, as well.
All right. So we've got Dal Khichdi once again. He says, or she says, I don't know what your gender is, Dal. Aussie bowlers want to play all 5 tests. That explains the lack of bumpers throughout the test match. Mitchell Marsh looks absolutely cooked, though. We mentioned this in the preview, that there will be more load for Australia's 4, main bowlers, their quartet, because of no Cam Green. And yeah, maybe you have a point over there.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it earlier as well, Dal. You might have missed it, but that's why Marnus was bowling the bouncers, right? And Mitch Marsh actually bowled fine in this test match, but they're terrified that they'll only get... I mean, he's only bowled once in a game between April and this test match, and that game he injured himself. Like, they are terrified that he's going to fall apart again. So, yeah, it's a huge issue for them going ahead. The Australian bowlers want to play all 5 tests. That isn't why there weren't bouncers bowled. Because they can bring in other bowlers if they have to. But the main thing behind it is I just don't think they want to tax their bowlers in case they have to bowl all 5 tests, which is a slightly different thing. The Australian bowlers can want to play all 5 tests, but it's ultimately up to Andrew McDonald, Pat Cummins, and George Bailey whether they do. So it's not like it's not like Hazelwood or Stark would have been going, I'm not going to bowl bouncers. I think it was more to do with the fact that they thought in this particular case they didn't have to. But I think it massively cost them in this test.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the super chats are coming like hotcakes or whatever, selling like hotcakes. Surya Bhamadipati. Bhamidipati, I think I've got that right. Looked at numbers extensively across all formats, and Hazelwood has comfortably been the second best all-format bowler over the last 4 years since his white ball resurgence after Bumrah. He's massively underrated. Even in this current test team, coming into the series in the last little while, Hazelwood has the best numbers out of all 3. So
yeah, it's not even close. Well, wasn't he averaging 13 or something this year coming into this test match?
It's ridiculous.
I think he was underpaid in the IPL auction as well. Yeah, what happened was, Surya, he had a period where he got really good at white ball cricket, as you say, his resurgence. I'm not even sure that's his resurgence. It's almost his surgence. He got really good as a white ball cricketer, and he had a bit of a moment where he wasn't as good in Test cricket, and now he seems to be on top of all 3. Everyone in the world thinks, I think everyone in the world has started to come around to just what a good bowler Hazelwood is because of the all formats. I think that's part of the reason. The only person who doesn't rate him is my father, but that's a different conversation for another day.
Not a big fan of the Hoff is Kimber Senior. Sankalp says it should and always be good areas with Jarrod Kimber. It is, isn't it?
Yeah, we just changed the name because we've got about 18 different channels, Sankalp. But we're in an area. We've been in an area for an hour and a half.
We're graduating to better areas, I suppose, from good areas. But anyway, that wraps up all of the super chats. Thank you, guys. They were never ending today, and this has now become a marathon podcast. But we've got massive attendance, lots of live viewers. Thank you so much for all of your super chats and your interactions in the comments as well. Just a quick reminder that you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. That can prove to be a one-stop shop for all the work that we do as part of this team, whether it be written content, podcasts, or videos. Quickly then, Jarrod, who's winning the ping pong test?
I want to say Australia because I think it makes the series more interesting. But yeah, I want to see what the odds are. And if there are good odds on India, I'm putting my money on India, not Australia.
Interesting. Well, they got rolled over India for 36 last time they played a ping pong test.
I think they're going to need more than 36 this time. Not many more, perhaps, the way Australia's batting.
Based on that and just that, I'm going to go Australia. Plus, I also kind of want the series to get more, enthralling. So anyway, you guys...
I said this, just before we finish, I said this the other day. This could be a great test series. Like, this is India winning in a 5-test series. I mean... a lot of things can go wrong, but this could be an awesome test series. And so let's just enjoy that.
Absolutely. Also, let us know what you think will happen in the pink ball test in the comments section below. That's all from both Behram and Jarrod on Overthrows today. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Have a good one. Enjoy yourselves, and we'll be back with another live show, probably like tomorrow. So see you guys, and goodbye.
Now I realize I'm the one who's supposed to press the button.
I have a book out with Abhishek Mukherjee, and it is called Overthrowing Cricket's Empire. And it's about the stories of how each team beat England for the first time. We go all the way back to the demon Fred Spofforth getting annoyed at W.G. Grace for acting a little bit like Alex Carey. And then we come all the way to present times with Rashid Khan's England's redemption. We cover every single team to beat England in a major international, but we also talk about the incredible stories like the barefoot basher from Fiji that almost played for New Zealand. In fact, this book is full of tales like that, like how Pakistan lost a top batter after he was on the run from an angry husband of a movie star he was having an affair with, and also how one future captain of his nation realised he might have to go out and bat at Lords and that he didn't own his own pads. Cricket was used as a tool by the Empire, but what happens when those nations grow up and get good at it? Find Overthrowing Cricket's Empire on Amazon today.